All right, well, welcome everyone to Live from My Drum Room. I have a very special show today with an old friend. We were talking offline and we go back to the 1980s. And so, without any further ado, please welcome my guest today, a longtime friend, a fabulous musician, drummer, producer, composer, the great Denny Fongheiser. Welcome, Denny.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Wow.
man.
Yeah,
You did.
well, thank you for the invite. You're one of my dearest people I've met, and all through my career. It was so early on and we became instant friends. And then you took off. You went to Boston, but hopefully I didn't scare you away from LA or something. But we continued to work together, and it's been beautiful. And
Yeah,
you're doing a great thing here. I've been watching your other interviews, and
thank
just
you.
such great stuff. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Denny. Thank you.
Great
And
people.
and yourself included. And honestly, you guys, and I say you and my friends, drummer friends that I've had on the show make it so easy because I'm such a fan. I mean that sincerely. You know that, and
Mm.
it really is easy to just sit here and talk with you and talk drums and like we used to do. And I think
Hmm.
back to first of all, I want to say thanks for being here today, and it's so overdue in having you. So many people have reached out and said, "You got to have Denny Fongheiser on the show," and yeah, or someone even said to me at one point, Denny, right? I'm like, of course I know him. Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
anyway,
thank you.
thank you. Yeah, uh, man, what an incredible career you've had and have. Um, and I'm going to just sort of jump in and go back to when we met, but I know your career began before that. By my recollection,
Hmm.
it was 1987. And I made a note of this, Denny, because I'd been working at DW. I started there in the fall of 86. And we started making the drums, like sort of officially got into the drum business in January of 87. And you were one of the first guys to come on board. It was like you and
Hmm.
Keltner and Chad Wackerman had already been there for a little while. And I think John Hernandez, but you and Danny Serafin were like some of the first early big name guys that we got to
Mm.
sign with DW. So
Well, that was yeah, I remember the first time going there, first time meeting you. I had I was mainly doing sessions, and I actually played. I had a couple kits of old Rogers. So those are my first kits, and that's what I was using. And to be honest with you, I had you know a couple other companies that approached,
sure.
and but I liked my drums, and so I didn't change. And I was doing this tour, the Belinda Carlisle Heaven on Earth tour is going to be a big tour that year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so uh, my drum tech for that tour is Jeff Ochiltree, the great Jeff Ochiltree,
Yeah.
and so and he's like, Denny, gotta get you some different drums, to go do this. And I'm like, but I like my drums. And he goes, oh man, he goes, I tell you what, you know, meet me in Thousand Oaks, and it was DW. And it's interesting when I got my first Rogers kit, it was between Camco and Rogers, and I forget what transpired to go to Rogers, but to choose that at the time, but uh, so I go, oh yeah, I know that logo and the lug, and we went down there and met you and John and Don, and I heard the drums and I was like, oh wow, this is and I think at the time were they using was it Keller shells at the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Yep.
so which was I think similar to what the Rogers were. I think
That's
was what it
right.
was,
Yep.
and Jeff knew that. He goes, okay, this you're gonna like, and I went, whoa, I love these. These are great, and I love the concept, and people are really passionate about their kits, and they weren't just grabbing things off a shelf and painting them. The timber
Yeah.
matching and everything he was doing, and I said, please, I would love to play these, so that's when it started, and
Yeah.
it continues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great,
Yeah.
man. It's great that, the I just love the idea that you were, one of the early guys to come in there, really kind of, and I knew that I sensed that was the situation. You had a bigger companies at that time approaching you, and it's easy to get, attracted to a company that
Hmm.
says we can give you some drums and we can promote
Hmm.
you. But you went for tone, you went for sound, you went for what you wanted to play. You were already playing Rogers, like you said, and not really looking for an endorsement. I think that's the purest type of artist you could ever hope
Hmm.
for an endorsement.
No. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we should. There's the phrase going around, play with what you love,
Yeah.
and I believe in that, and fortunately, you know, Jeff, was able to steer me, and also, knowing I did know that Chad and Jim Keltner were playing him. I was like, okay, and um, yeah, I just related to them, and they were so open to making whatever you wanted to make, and we put the first get together. It's funny. I remember John goes, I was playing black drums, and he goes, anything but black. He goes, only because he wanted them he wanted the like people to see them more, right? I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Keltner had got this Superman's hair, which was basically blue black,
Yeah.
right?
Those are
And
beautiful,
it
man.
was
Yeah.
beautiful, it was great. And I went, I don't mean to copy him, but I love this, And it was
Yeah.
like a polyester, it was a different kind of finish that you guys were doing, and I said, yeah, okay, I want Superman's hair. He said, okay, at least that's not all black. And so yeah, that's how I came about that. And then later on, um,
Oh, that's
actually,
funny.
I was at a store in my neighborhood, and at the time in the late '80s, and this guy came up to me and said, "Are you Danny?" I said, "Yeah." How much I owe you, but he goes, no, he goes, I'm Bill Dedamore. He goes, I finished your drums. I did your first kit at DW, and oh wow, great. So that was cool. He was in the neighborhood, and we became friends. And then he was doing his thing,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
great. It's great, the pork
Yeah.
pie thing, and yeah. So it's a
Bill,
small world out there.
it sure is. I'm glad you mentioned Bill Dedamore because he's such a great human, first of all, and such a great drum builder. And I think most drummers probably know Bill, as Denny just said, has pork pie percussion. Uh, Beautiful drums that he makes. And Bill and I used to. I lived in the valley. I lived in Canoga Park, and Bill was in Woodland Hills. So we'd commute together to DW some mornings, and we
Oh wow,
became
oh
good
cool.
buddies. Yeah, and he's
Oh.
yeah, and like you say, like all these years later, when I'd see him at the NAMM show or at the Frankfurt show in Germany or something, and we go, yeah, remember we used to drive to work together, and there's Bill now with
Oh,
his.
that's so cool.
I know I love that about all of us that circle, no matter where people go, that circle's still really tight. I think
Yeah.
for all of us, and it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But
I know every year at the NAMM show, I always made sure to go by and say hi to him, see what he was
yeah.
doing, and he does such beautiful work. So
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Well, to jump backwards a second, I just wanted to mention that how far back our history goes, as you said, and
Mhm.
and you're one of my absolute favorite people, and but I know you grew up in the Bay Area and
Mhm.
moved to LA pretty young though, right? In your early 20s,
Yeah.
or
I think I just turned 20.
had just
Just
turned
turning
20.
20. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I grew up in the East Bay in San Leandro, right next, like near the Oakland border there. And yeah, it was a great place to grow up. I mean, it was, back then there was still a lot of music there,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and there was so many different kinds of music, and like in the East Bay, it was more the funk and fusion and funk stuff kind of going on, and I was really I grew up, actually, my career doesn't show it as much, but but I grew up mostly listening to, you know, a lot of funk and R&B. And you know, I was in the whole Tower of Power thing, Sly, Stevie Wonder, and all that stuff, and the Motown stuff before that as a kid, little kid. And and then when I was older, when I turned 16, I was able to go and play a lot in San Francisco, and that was more bebop stuff and the rock stuff, more of the rock
Yeah.
stuff. So I was in both worlds and kind of went back and forth. In fact, I think I joined both unions at one point, but for some reason. But yeah, it was a great place to grow up for that, you know, because it was
Sure. Yeah.
all these little worlds built into it, you know. And but you know, I I knew I wanted to make records. When I was playing gigs probably when I was in school. Started 15, 14, and then 16. I could drive, doing a lot more, and uh, I got to play with just great musicians, just phenomenal there. My older brother, as I think you know, is a drummer and a drum
Yeah. Yeah.
teacher, and he was my inspiration. That's why I started playing. Is I followed around what he did, and he so I got to play with the people he was playing with. He's 8 years older than me, and so all these guys were great musicians, you know, and so I'm really grateful for that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I mean, I really got to see at our house. I got to hear them play all the time, and you know, that was a really great education for me. And then I studied with Rich, and then I would go to Berkeley and the Tower Records there, and I used to see in the used floor, I could see credits, and I started noticing that these guys play with all these different artists and these different songs, and I started loving music from listening to the radio, you know,
Right.
and I had a little transistor radio on my ear, you know, on my front porch, and uh, at first I wanted to be a disc jockey, old school disc jockey, and we you know, just because it's like share music, because I loved it, you know, like let's do that, and then started playing and realized, oh wow, I can play with these different artists and play these different songs, and it attracted me more than being in a band at the time, because of that, because you had this variety. You know,
Yeah.
with a band, you're learning maybe 10 songs a year, where this you could do 10 songs in a few days, you know, and you're creating the parts and playing different kinds of music. Because I was exposed to so many different kinds of music, I enjoyed, you know, doing that. So anyway, I would see guys on a lot of the, you know, R&B stuff, and at the time with Harvey Mason, and Jeff Porcaro was doing everything else, and a
Yeah.
lot of guys, a lot of great people I started following and listening to, and just realized, oh wow, you know, you can create this kind of work. And I knew we had to go to either New York or LA to do that. And I had an opportunity actually to join a band, and it was it was really a great, it was a band called St. Regis, and it was a really musical but a really great band. And but I joined it kind of guys. I knew they were coming to LA, and I was like, that first got me interested. Then when I was playing with them, we, you know, we really enjoyed it. But we came down, and first gig we got a record deal, and then there's a classic Hollywood story where we got the record deal, and we had the huge crowd that first night, and then we did a silent show a few days later, and the CEO of the company came down, but we didn't tell anybody about the show because we were just going to experiment with some songs, and so no one was there, and we lost the contract. Uh,
Oh,
but yeah, and but you know, we did well, and we got a lot of, you know, there was a lot of musician friends that we built up, and I
mhm.
remember uh, we did a show at Madame Wong's actually here in Santa Monica, and it was two stages. We were on a small stage, and I went to the big stage, and and the first band I saw was just great musicians,
Yeah.
and great. Actually, Victor Bassetti, who plays with Los Lobos, drummer. I think
Mm-hmm.
he was the first drummer I saw there. Um, and I saw Michael Jokum at my place, and I was just the bar was so high,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so inspiring. Just go. The first people you saw were great musicians, and um, I was inspired by it. Rather than get scared by it, I was inspired by it.
Yeah.
I want to be like that, and I knew I had a lot of work to do, and and started doing that. But you know, it, it was a great move. When I was a little kid, I had we would vacation in LA, and sometimes, and I just had this feeling. There was just an energy that I liked, and I think it was because there was so much of the industry. And so wherever you were, even if you're at a restaurant or somewhere, there's people in that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of fed creatively. And New York was great too. And so those are the two options. And
Right.
musically, I related to both. They were both different at that time in the 80s, and but I related to both. But LA is where I chose to come.
Yeah.
And then later, I worked in New York. I used to work in New York a few times a year. Um, but uh, but yeah, I was very fortunate. Came down here. People were great, and um, it was a really good community. Yeah, I guess it always kind of is with drummers, right? We don't get to
Yeah.
work together, maybe see each other all the time, but when we do, it's a really a common bond.
Right. Right.
It's not like a competition thing. We're in it together.
Right. Exactly.
I
And so,
I I think I heard on your uh, uh, oh, Omar Hakim say on your podcast, I think drummers know, we all know what it takes to do this, right? To
yeah.
play these things,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and so there's this just natural connection. I thought that was a great line.
It's a great line.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so true too. And I just think it's fascinating that at 20 years old you made a move like that. And I didn't. It makes sense that you kind of came down with you moved down with a gig basically. You didn't just
Mhm.
show up completely cold and go, okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
break into the session scene. But to back up a second though, the fact that basically as a teenager you had this vision of being a session drummer, which I find is amazing. I never knew that about you. I
Mhm.
thought I knew you'd moved from the Bay Area, and I just thought, um, you came down here to, like everybody, went to LA to sort of get in the band, and then
Mhm.
found your way into doing session work. But you actually went there kind of with a plan,
Mhm.
which I think is huge, and it makes a lot of sense
Mhm.
because you've been so successful. Um, so you're 20 years old, and how soon did you start to get work?
Well, the band was together here for about a year, and then we split up, and I had done. Uh, I had been asked to do this tour. This Amanda Miguel, the South American artist, and she was kind of like a Diana Ross of South America at the time. And I went down and did it, and every musician in the band was far beyond me, and experienced, and I loved it, and it was just a couple weeks. And actually, I think it's when I left the band. I came back and left the band. I said I really want to pursue what I want to do here, and we had a lot of musician following with our band too,
Mm,
different bands and stuff. So I got to know a lot of people, and literally played with everybody. I was taking my drums around, setting them up 3 times a day,
wow.
and maybe getting paid a few bucks for one of them, but maybe not. And just to meet people and play, mostly original stuff, original bands and artists, because I knew, because that's what I wanted to get into.
Right.
Um, and I didn't do as many of the gigs, like the club gigs and casual stuff I did as a kid, because I didn't want to be thought of as that. I wanted to really focus on the session thing. I had done some, but and just again, just kept at it. And I let everybody know I wanted to do sessions, and went in with the studio with young producers, and I remember that a friend of mine, Derek Nakamoto, who was still a great friend of mine, he was a Hiroshima. He was in that band at the time, and
Yeah.
and he was outside of our rehearsal studio and at SIR, and he goes, "Hey, my roommate's a drummer, and he told me about you guys, and we became friends. He came to see us, and he said, "Hey, I got this session. I think I'm gonna produce this session. You want to play?" And I said, "Yeah," and we went in, and we're still best friend, really good friends. So he appreciated our wedding
Oh,
last May, and
yeah.
but we went in, and I think I went home kind of in tears, like it sucked, it wasn't good. And
Oh,
we
man.
were doing a ballad, we were put into a click, we just didn't know what we were doing, and I had done sessions in the Bay Area, but in this situation, we're trying to fish for this thing, and he didn't suck. I was trying to. I felt it wasn't good on my part, and I just like that got me just dialing in and knowing that I still had work to do, and it was
Yeah.
a different level here too. For in my opinion, in my feeling, it was a I had to rise to another place, and again, that was inspiring to me. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it's, everybody that comes here, there's especially at that point, there was so many musicians coming here every week, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
uh and really great musicians from all over the world, and they were all serious. They all had something to offer. So when you get that kind of a pool, you really have to rise. And I wanted to do the record thing, and I got told, uh you know well, there's only really five guys on each instrument, doing what you want to do, and 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 if you want to do it, kind of have to play these drums, and there's like a certain thing kind of going on. And I thought about it, and I went, well, if I did that, then of course there's no room for me, because it sound like everybody else,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they're better. It sounded like them that I'm going to be better. It sounded like them, and I believe we emulate, and we learn from others, but we're best at doing things in our way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and uh, and so that's why I kept the Rogers drums, and I did that, and then later on with DW, but yeah, I was told it was impossible, and it just wasn't going to happen, and I just really wanted to, and again, I
Yeah.
did everything I could. We started out doing a bunch of European records, and at the time, drum machines were coming in, and that was the other thing. It's like, well, you know what? It's going to be over soon, because drum machines are coming in, and it's going to diminish, the work, and it did. Of course, it diminished things, but I understood why to use them at certain times, or there's some things I was intrigued by them too. So I said, well, I should learn how to do this. Yeah,
Hmm.
I should learn this too. Then why not have a drummer do it, rather than somebody else? And so, and electronic drums too, I was into very early, even before I moved to LA. And um, so I think that really helped me, because I was able to go in and even do sessions where, they would replace the hi-hat a lot on drum machines, because the hi-hat wasn't didn't
Yeah.
feel the
Yeah.
same way, or sound the same way, and you know, uh, so I would go and replace hi-hat, or do snare fills. Fills didn't sound right, or cymbal crashes, because cymbals sounded better live, and you may as well have done the whole thing, huh? But
Yeah.
you had you did. But what it did for me is it really helped me. It helped me really, at that point, also drummers had to become a machine,
Yeah.
time
Yep.
wise. And that's what I mean
Yep.
about that session earlier. I felt like I wasn't nailing it, and I had to learn what I needed to do with the click and all of that. And it's funny because today ballads are my favorite things to do and easiest thing to do. And it was the thing that hit me, that kicked
Isn't
my
it? Yeah.
my butt. And but I I love the space in them. But you had to be on it, and you couldn't even flange with or face with the click. It had to be just nailed,
Yeah.
and like a drum machine. And so it helped me do that, you know but it also helped me learn different swing values, because we were laying down samples, and we had to go through a lot back then with putting them through a delay and certain amount of milliseconds. So it got me to learn a lot of placement of groove and feel, what
Yeah.
this feels like, what that feels like. And then it just grew into, you know, then I had that situation going on, and that was like a lot of European records. A lot of us, a lot of kind of our era studio musicians came out of that camp, kind of
Mhm.
doing those records and kind of learning. And then I was doing a lot of organic stuff, and so fortunately for me, it I had kind of both sides going, and I liked both sides, and I understood both sides. To go to the perfection thing, you had to kind of do that perfection thing. I mean, I would practice with into a stereo cassette deck, just put on record so I see the needles, and somehow I had a click going in, and one, and then me, and I record it, and I try to make sure the levels went to the exact same spot, because our
Wow.
velocities had to be more in
Yeah.
control, and the softs, all of them. So you had control over wherever you were, and that was the thing that it's funny now, and sequencers and drum machines, and even a lot of players now work hard not to do that, right? It's
Mhm.
a lot freer. But I'm really glad that I had to learn now, because I feel like once you know where that is, where that kind of perfection of time is, and then you loosen it up,
Mhm.
but it's purposeful,
Yeah. Yep.
and you can move with it as much you want, then you can get back into it. And so I'm really happy with it. But later on, I did have to try to lose it, like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
be that,
Be a little more.
and
Yeah.
yeah, in
But
fact, I don't even know if I can do that now. But
no, I'm sure you could, Danny. But
yeah,
you know what? I have to think too that when you were saying you would go in and do like hi hat overdubs or cymbal crashes, probably just that experience of being in the studio even just made you more comfortable. Just the to me
100%.
the idea of being called in for a session like that in general has to be just nerve wracking the first couple of times because you're like shit, man. Like you know did I wear the right shirt? No.
Right,
no,
right.
but I mean, you're
Yeah,
going,
well,
yeah, you're just super like conscious of everything you're doing. Right. And
100%. And dealing with people, and also understanding, what's being asked, and
yeah,
different, everybody has their own way of expressing, and their own lingo in a ways. A lot of producers and especially back then, a lot of producers weren't musicians, and necessarily, so they wouldn't speak necessarily in musical terms. And I got
yeah.
to understand that, and actually, I like it. I almost prefer it, because it leaves it open for the musician. Uh,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
I got to learn, just the different ways people work, and so the more you learn, the more wide of the variety that you're taking in, you have a lot more to draw on. You'd be at a session later, and you're going to draw on this thing you did three
Yeah.
years ago, and
Where,
which may have nothing to do with the session you're doing now, but there's something from that you learn, that you can,
yeah, absolutely.
deliver.
You were talking about electronics. I remember I moved to LA in '85 at the sort of height of all that to work for Simmons, and I hadn't met you yet, but
Oh, you worked.
I worked at Simmons
Oh,
before DW from '85 to
that's
'86.
right. I think you told
Yeah,
me that. Yeah.
and but I mean, everybody in town, yourself and Keltner and Vinny and JR and all the guys, Mike Baird, Steve Schaefer, all the guys. I'm going to show that great picture of all you guys in a minute, but from the round table thing. But that it was you had to have all that gear back then, and it was just it was a different. I guess if nothing else, it was a time to at least learn all that stuff. And I have to think it at least was beneficial it gave you an understanding of how to program and sampling and sounds
Yeah,
and yeah and
yeah, into production and all that.
exactly yeah.
Um, I, my first thing with electronic drums, I think it was about 1977 or so. Um, I was
Oh
playing in a club band. I was just got out of high school, and the snare came out, the little
yes,
black one, right,
yep,
with the claps, and then you
mm-hmm.
did all that, and all the disco stuff had it at the time. I got it as soon as it came out, so I wanted to learn it. I still do that. I get things and I research new things that are coming out all the time, just to know it, just to understand it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even if you don't use it, there's something you can get from it that you could utilize in a different way. Or if someone brings it up, you know what they're talking about. And so I love it. But so anyway, came down here, and the Simmons thing started. And
Mm.
I actually got I used to go down to, I lived in Sherman Oaks, and there was a Guitar Center on Ventura there where
Ventura.
Dave Waterman
Yeah,
and
Richie
was
Pedanek.
there, and
Yeah,
Richie, yes.
yeah.
And so we I would go down. They were so nice to me. I think they had seen the band or something too, and they were so nice to me. In fact, all my cymbals were like cracked, and I remember getting a couple cymbal overdub sessions, and they would let me take them out and
Wow,
and do a session. Yeah, and I'll never forget it. And
that's
and they'd
cool.
also let me sit down. The Simmons Sevens came out, the digital analog combo,
Yeah.
and so they would let me sit there. I just used to sit there just to learn how to program it, just to know it. And then I eventually bought it and got one, and then it grew to where we had I had a rack in mid '80s, had a rack, 5 foot tall rack, had a mixer, a Roland mixer in it. I had the Simmons 5, the Simmons 7. I had an 808 drum machine and an Alesis, and I SPX 90
Okay.
reverb,
Yeah. What about an
all that
Akai?
going
Like, remember
through.
the Akai was like that. Maybe came a little bit later, but
Yep, the Akai
yeah.
sampler. Well, when the Akai, well, finish this. That rack then I had patched in. I had triggers on all the drums that were patched in. Then I had pads that were all patched in, and then I could put it to any module or anything we wanted. Right.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
honest with you, in that form, it didn't get used a ton. I would use it in different ways, but as far as that kind of tracking form, it didn't get used a ton. But it was something we had
Yeah.
to have,
Yeah.
and they
You
wanted
had
to
to
know
have.
was there, and when you needed it, it was there. But then a couple of years later, I added a forat, which was what you're talking about when Akai came out with their sampler. Um, is a great sampler. Another company, Borat, Ben, look at the other Bruce and Ben, I think, and great guys. And they used to work at Akai, I think, and they started this company.
Right. Right.
And it was a higher sample rate. It was 96K. It was 16-bit at 96K, but you had to like tune up the tuning all the way up to get the 96K. So if you sampled something at 96, you couldn't tune it up. You can only tune it down. And it was one sound per disc, per
Wow.
floppy disk that you had to
Yeah.
load in. And yeah, it was crazy.
I
And I
know.
was like, I love this thing though. And we but what it was great for is triggering off a tape. If we wanted to like experiment with different sounds off a tape, it was
Hmm.
beautiful. So I was always taking it out of the rack and putting it in the control room. And a lot of mixing engineers started purchasing it. But Yeah, I had that in the Akai. I got that over the Akai, but I rented the Akai a lot when somebody wanted it. So a lot of anything I didn't have, if somebody wanted something, I would rent it and I'd learn it, and then I'd go, go use it or whatever for that. But that was my rack. So I didn't have that Akai, but I had chosen the 4 at that point mainly because of that sample rate.
Yeah.
That was actually, we started looping in there. We would sample, had a long span, so we could actually sample some kind a groove into it, and I did it on a few records back then actually, and basically turned it into a loop. We trigger it with the Lisa MIDI from a drum machine, and I used to use, and that's another thing too. The drum machines, they all had a different clocking, and so many notches per quarter note to where things would land, even if it was quantized. So they all had a different feel to them. Like the Akai had it still. Yeah. MPC has its own feel, which I love. I use them, but they all have their. Now you can adjust them far beyond, so it kind of doesn't matter anymore. But back then, they all had a certain swing to them. Even though they were locked, even a quarter note, just a quarter note side stick, they had a swing to them. And we used to use different machines for different tracks sometimes as a click, because it would just make you play a little differently. Or if you programmed the rhythm in it, it would make you play differently. And and my favorite one at the time was the Alesis HR16. Sonically, I love the side stick in it, but the feel of where that landed, which just felt good for me. And
I remember
that's
that machine.
You used it to click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you know this stuff inside and out. And I know you have to. Yeah. So fast forward a minute. So, it's still the 1980s. You've become an accomplished session player. By the time 1988 rolls around, you've played on a lot of records. You're definitely well entrenched on the scene in LA. And I'd love to just know the origins of how the call came, or how it came about that you played on Tracy Chapman's debut record, and just. Well, I know we'll get to this, but did you have any sort of vibe that it would be what it has become, what it became and has become, when you heard this music and?
Well, I was doing records, but I wasn't. I mean, it was starting to go that way. I had done a session with producer Don Gaiman, who had done Mellencamp Records and a lot of other people, and it was a Brian Setzer, his solo record for him. But the first song we did was for a movie called La Bamba, and it was the Summertime Blues. We did on that, and a guy, engineer Ross Hogarth, actually got me onto that. I was really just trying to do records, and a good friend of mine, Eric Presley, bass player, kept asking me to do this gig with this artist named Todd Sharp, and I went down. I said no a couple times because I thought it would interfere with some other things, and then I went and did it, and it was great. Had a great time, and I met this engineer, Ross, and he goes, Ross Hogarth, who's become a great producer, and he said, "Hey, I like your playing." He goes, I just got asked to do this record that Don Gaiman's producing with Brian Setzer, and they're looking for a drummer. Do you want to come down? It's like, yeah, and next day literally went down, and we played for about 20 minutes, and they went out of the room and came back and said, you want to do the record? And I said, of course. And so luckily I did that gig, because it set things off. To be honest with you, almost every really cool thing came out of something I didn't want to necessarily do, or almost didn't go out, or didn't do something, and this was one of them. And so anyway, I did that, and then that's expanded, and because I was working with Don, everything kind of blossomed. and started blossoming. We just finished a record with this band called Cock Robin, and actually it was the first real digital record. It was a lot of it was put into a synclavier at the time. Synclavier was basically Pro Tools, but it was its own computer and keyboard and sampler at the time. And I think they were $250,000 at the time, where now it's like $250. And so
Yeah.
and so I got a great chance to use that, and I played live. We measured different triggers, the speed of triggering, and all this stuff, and we did this. I played live into it, and so it was like, and then we did a lot of acoustic overdubs, and it was all mixed. The whole thing was done digitally, and great songs, and it was just a cool experience. And I was supposed to go on tour with them, and they were doing a promotional tour, and I got this phone call, and they said, "Hey, we're going to send you a cassette to David Kirschenbaum's office," and we're other than my Brian Setzer thing, records, you don't really audition for records. They hire you, come down. If it doesn't work, then they're probably going to get someone else. But you you rarely audition. But they were going to audition, and the reason why they're auditioning is they just really wanted to put the right thing together for her, and something that wasn't going to get in her way, and support it, and just something that was comfortable and helped elevate her songs. And casting is so important. There could be 10 great, any instrument or any combination of instruments, and great people, and it's a completely different record when you replace any one of them. It's just because people's personalities and their sound, and it changes things. And so they were really want to be particular in the casting for this record. And so they sent me the cassette, and I have this tour, and I'm young, starting out still, and having a tour was a big deal. And so they sent me the cassette, and I heard there's like 3 songs on the cassette, and I was like, I gotta do this. And I just really related to it. I thought songwriting was amazing, voice was amazing. I just wanted to do it. So I actually called the band and said, I think I got to do this thing, and I'm going to get you a great sub, and it was, it worked out well. I actually got Tristan Bowden to do it. He did it for me, and it was great. And so I went down. So I gave up the whole tour just for this audition. I had no idea if I was going to get it. Man. And so I went down, and we played, and we're the bass player, and I had heard kind of through the wall some guys in there that in my mind were far above me, and they had ahead of me too, career wise, and they they were playing it in a way of kind of where things were musically in that time period, especially on the radio and stuff. But I just didn't hear her music that way, and so I just so either they're gonna hate this or not, and I just did my thing where had a brush in one hand and did side stick and did some different things, and I got home, and of course there were answering machines back then, so on the answering machine it was like, can you come back tomorrow?
And Tracy was there, Denny, when you did this.
Yeah,
Tracy
was there.
Yeah, she was there. Sorry.
So I can kind of hear Tracy through the wall. Thanks for saying that. Actually, I could kind of hear Tracy through the wall, and my thing was listening to her is she was the most consistent person I've ever heard in my life. I mean, her delivery was just impeccable every time. And I mean, I could faintly hear it, but she was there. Yeah, it was basically bass player, me and her, and then David Kirschenbaum and the engineer in the
Okay.
control room. And there was a kit already there. And so we did these 3 songs, asked them to come back. We played with a bunch of bass players for a couple of days, and um, I had I had never played with him, but I thought of Larry Klein and stuff with Joni and a lot of things he had done. I thought, man, his just the way he plays, and he's very lyrical. I mentioned it to David. And David said, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I didn't know this until just a few weeks ago from Larry, that Larry had a record to do, and he goes, "David, it sounds good. Thank you for calling, but I have this record. I'm booked." And David goes, "Let me just messenger you the cassette." And he said, "Okay." He messages the cassette, and Larry calls him back and says, "I'll get out of my record.
I
I'll
love
come
it,
down."
man.
And yeah, so it's like we both did that. It's like
Oh,
it's just a testament to her. Her
yeah. Yep.
it was amazing, and so we knew it was special, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he
Yep.
came down. It was amazing, and we started the record that day, and
Wow.
and we started tracking. So we tracked the whole record with just the 3 of us, and then there some great overdubs on top of it,
Yep.
Jack Holder and a few other people. Um, but yeah, we that's how that came about. Now, as far as knowing where it would go, we knew it was special and wanted to be a part of it, but it wasn't that it was going to be. We didn't necessarily know or feel it was going to be this big hit. We just musically related to it,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, I learned a lot from that, because everything on the radio at the time was everything was completely locked to click. There was a certain sound that was out there,
Yeah.
and
Gated drums. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
and this was not. There
Yeah.
wasn't a click to be found, and we couldn't. We did if we did that, it lost its magic, its spark, right? We I think we tried it, and it was like, it lost its spark. So it was live takes. It was us live takes. Even I think most of her vocals were the live take, and basically, if it was a great take from her, then it was probably a great take from all of us, right?
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
just and it was really capturing an emotion, capturing a feeling, and more than perfection. And so I didn't think somebody asked me, what you think it's going to be a big thing? I said, she's so good. I said, I, it's a shame. I don't know if a lot of people are going to hear it,
Yeah.
because it's so good. And then,
Yeah.
I was, shut me up. But
No, but Denny, that's an understandable way to look at it. I'd be the same way because I think about 1988, Guns N' Roses,
mhm, mhm.
Motley Crue, Poison, whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it
it's
was
it's
all
a
that.
different,
Yeah.
radio format, but like what a lot of people were listening to, and
Hmm.
I think the beauty of that record is it just cut through all that noise. Like it was so unique, like you said, it was so organic. And
Hmm.
you were reading my mind because I was going to ask you. It always sounded to me like it was like a live record, like a live, mostly live
Hmm.
take, And I wondered if her
Hmm.
vocals were even live. Did she? So she played and sang live. You
Hmm.
think? And
Yeah.
that blows my mind. I mean, it doesn't surprise
Yeah.
me knowing what I know about
Yeah.
her, but
Yeah.
wow, man, wow.
Yeah. It was amazing. So having that voice in my head, I, 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 I listen to the vocal. If I don't hear anything else, I have to hear the vocal, and I won't even, not to be a jerk, but I won't even do a track really unless the singer is on it, at least, or at least the
Yeah,
melody is there. But hopefully the singer, because you got to play with their phrasing. You need to lock it in. I I uh, I did a record with this great singer, Robin Zander, and we
oh
were doing
man,
something. He goes, "Hey man, I like what you're playing. I was getting sounds. So I was doing things. He goes, I love that. He goes, just do that for like 4 minutes. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah. And I said, but you're Robin Zander, man, and I want to play with you. And he goes, I don't know if I have the song down yet. I said, yeah, you do. I said, come on, play with me. I said, I think I said what I said was, oh, it's my record. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, if I just lay this down, then you're going to sing to me, all right? And I said, but if you sing, and then you go back to sing it again, you're singing to you if I do my job right, because I'm going to be phrasing where you're phrasing. I said, well, we could play this same groove at this tempo, and it could feel a million different ways, but it's going to lock in when you're singing. And so he did it, and it was great. It went really well,
That's
and we had
great.
fun.
That's
And
great.
I saw him recently. We talked about it. We were on tour. It was on, I think it was an it was hard. I think it was Ann Wilson tour, and yeah, we talked about that. It was fun. But anyway, Tracy, back to Tracy. Yes, it was. We did try to do it with the click, and it wasn't going to work. In fact, we even were going to have percussion. I had this. It was a Russian dragon, and something. It was a way we had it hooked up, and there was this. It didn't work great, but it's where the sequencer would follow the drummer, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we were going to have percussion kind of with that, and that didn't work either. So we tried these things very quickly, but it was just clear very quickly that it's needed to be organic,
Yeah.
and that was
And
it.
you heard the cross stick. I mean, you heard the tune. And Tracy brought the band pretty much fully formed songs, right? She had written these songs and
Hmm.
but gave you the leeway, the sort of, the blessing to kind of put your stamp on it.
Yeah,
Um,
basically, Larry and I would listen to the cassette and lounge and write out a quick chart, and they make, David or Tracy made, paint a little picture of what they were looking for, and then we just kind of thought about it and sat down and started playing, and you know and um you know when it was right, we knew it,
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
well, David knew it. And and it was, actually, we shouldn't know it really. And I always say, when people would ask me that, is that the take? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't know. I should be in this so much. You know what I mean? You tell me,
yeah,
you're hearing it,
yeah, yeah.
and but
Good point. Very good point.
but that's how that's how we did it. And I think that was so brilliant of both Dave and Tracy to want to do that, because those songs they're stories, and it's about her delivery. It's about her touch on her guitar, and
Yeah,
nobody does that. And there's a lot of really great guitar players. I can't tell you how many times I've seen them go up to her and go, how are you doing? I mean,
yeah,
they can't figure it out. And she's got this beautiful touch, and in the way she sings, there's a certain dynamic she has in her voice that that just triggers you. That record really, the cool thing about the success of that record, in my heart, is the fact that the people chose it. It got successful because she played it live.
hmm,
I was the Nelson Mandela concert in England, and it was televised worldwide. And she had already gone on early before it was televised, right? And then at at the prime time, headliner, I think, was Stevie Wonder, and something wasn't working in his synclavier, I think, and his gear, and they said, "Hey, we get Tracy back here, because it's simple, right? And go up
yeah,
and
yep.
while we're doing this." And the next day, I mean, she did so beautifully. If you ever seen that performance, it's
I think I
amazing.
have.
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that's what broke the record. Is the
Wow.
people really chose it because those her delivery and those songs, you know,
It's
touched them.
from
But it was
deep
done
inside.
exactly
Yeah.
how she had them on the cassette. We basically just joined in.
Yeah.
found our way around that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, speaking of performance, Denny, I got to say, I reached out to you right after the Grammys. Your performance on the Grammys this year with Tracy and Luke Combs doing Fast Car, it was like my wife Kelly and I watched it and we wept. We did. It was so moving. Yeah, just
Thank you.
so
Yeah,
deep, man.
yeah. A lot of people have said that, and when I watched it, I could see that, especially when you see the glow in Tracy, and you see and in Luke as well, and the delivery of it. It was special for me on uh, a lot of levels. Um, you know, the fact that it was 35 years since we recorded it, and it was the first time I had played with her. I had toured with her in the late 2000s, and I think Larry had done something too, and and touring to play that song, and but never together, all together. And she really wanted that to happen. It was really heartfelt for me. As
Man,
side musicians, you don't always get that,
yeah,
and Larry and I were really touched by that, and it was a nice, beautiful reunion that way. And but we got into rehearsal, and the rest of the band was so good. Luke was a sweetheart, and he really truly loves and respects Tracy, and
it shows. Yeah.
his whole dynamic. He just wanted to do the song. He was on the last song of his record, and when he shared with me, and hopefully I repeat it correctly, he was on the last song of his record, and instead of doing one of his songs, he said, "I want to do Fast Car." And he said that was a song to make me buy a guitar, the first song I learned, and I love it, and I want to put it out there. He didn't change anything for lyrically or anything. Some of the arrangement was changed a bit, and but he did that, and he didn't even have it to be like, "Oh, this is going to be a hit. I want to put this on to be a hit." He just loved it and wanted it. In fact, he had I think he already had 2 hits on that record. And again, the people chose it. He was playing it live. He plays it like 70,000 a night, and they go crazy when he started to play it, and radio started playing it. So the second time it
Yeah.
came naturally. But so it was cool to be, here's these 2 different genres, kind of, and they're coming together, and so that song got introduced by a whole nother audience, and and it was just really cool. And then looking out to the audience, of course, the pressure's high doing those shows because there's no redo, and
Yeah.
and so so I of course concentrated, but I just wanted one time to look up and just look out, and to see all the different artists all up, standing up and engaged, and that was
Oh,
it was really, it was pretty amazing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was really honored to be there. I was honored to play with all of them. We had Joe Gore. Tracy got Joe. She used him on some, I think in the 2000s, on a couple tours with guitar. He was great. Larry Campbell played fiddle. We um, played. First time I played live with Tracy was the first Lilith Fair tour. It was just gonna be 12 shows. And so I said, "Yeah, that sounds fun. Just 12 shows." It ended up being like 4 years, but we did these 12 shows, and he
I saw
Larry
you
was
that
playing
year.
with us.
Yeah.
Oh, did
I,
you? Yeah.
you came through. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was
No.
going to mention that I'm pretty sure it was that first tour that I remember you came through Great Woods in the Boston
Oh,
area,
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
hung out.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
But
right. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I
Anyway,
remember that. Yeah, I think
was it
that might
90,
have been that tour. Yeah, that was a Lilith Fair tour. I thought it was later, but yeah, that was it. Yeah,
90,
96, I think. Yeah.
96? Yeah. Okay.
Six,
That's yeah.
something, I think. Yeah. And or 7, maybe 97. But Yeah, he played with us but that's the last time because he was with Dylan for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I hadn't seen him since. Tracy hadn't seen him since, but he's such a great musician, she wanted him. And then Luke's uh uh Kurt what's his last name? I want to get this correct. Ozan, I think. Ozan. He is a great guitar player too, but he played pedal steel, and it was cool. And it was great, and everyone was just happy to be there. It was just a really enjoyable. And to the first time we played it, it was like, oh, okay, this is really fun, you know.
That's great. Well, I have to tell you,
Yeah.
just looking, Tracy Chapman is watching, Tracy Chapman online, and 1997 was the year. That was my first inclination, but I thought it was 96 or 97. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
thank you for
97,
the
they
yeah
said?
for the
Okay.
confirmation, Tracy Chapman. Um,
Mm,
but I want to play. Can we play a minute of Fast Car
sure.
um, just to sample your beautiful drumming and a few minutes of this absolutely beautiful song. Um,
You get a fast car. I want a ticket to anywhere. Maybe we make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. You got a fast car. I got a plan to get us out of here. Been working at the convenience store. Managed to save just a little bit of money. Won't have to drive too far. Just cross the border and into the city. You and I can both get jobs and finally see what it means to be living. See, my old man's got a problem. Yeah, but the bottle, that's the way it is. He says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said, somebody's got to take care of him. So I quit school and that's what I did. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights day out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. You got a fast car. We go cruise and entertain ourselves. Still ain't got a job. Now work in the market as a checkout girl. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter, buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. Had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. You got a fast car. I got a job that pays all our bills. Instead of drinking late at the bar, see more your friends than you do your kids. I'd always hope for better. Thought maybe together you and me find it. I got no plans, I ain't going nowhere. So take your fast car and keep on driving. I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast, I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so you can fly away? You gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way.
I love hearing her phrasing.
Man.
So,
yeah. I knew I couldn't play a couple of minutes of it. There was no spot where I was going to fade it, and I'm like, no, because Denny's coming back in here. I can't fade it. But man, what a lesson, for all of us drummers, for all of us musicians on playing for the song and creating a part that, last week I had Joel Selvin, who wrote the book about the biography on Jim Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about Jim Gordon, and it's so reminiscent of the way Jim would set up songs, like the beautiful, the dynamics, No, absolutely, Denny. The cross stick, during the verse, and then coming in with the snare hit, and then, you can hear that you're playing with some gusto, there, and then you bring it right back down again, and it's just, it supports the mood of the song so beautifully. It's
thank you.
Magic, man.
Thank you. Well, it was built in the song, her way. We're just there to try to embellish it. And, that, I mean, that's really the key. I mean, especially when it's something that's so well, with Tracy's songs, I always say they're deceptively simple.
Yeah.
They sound simple, but they're not. Arrangement wise, that's not a simple arrangement. It's not and I mean, and even the fact that it takes a minute and a half to get to the chorus instead of, I mean, it's a different type of vibe, and there's always these little extra little things, but they work. They're so well written. They work. You don't know that listening down. It just flies by you, and you're in it, And she phrases so well around all of it. It works. So the testament to all those songs on that particular record did not fuck it up, just don't, and try your best to because it's good. It's great like it is, right?
Yeah.
And so adding something to it could be good or it could be bad. And so
no, but I'm laughing because of the way you said it's so funny, but you're absolutely right, man. It's like, don't try to put some extra special shit that you don't like. You knew just where to draw the line on, because you played some beautiful bass drum accents in there just to support it, to give it a push and a pull kind of thing, and some little hi-hat stuff. But it never got out of control with like remotely close to overplaying in any place. Yeah.
Well, wow, yeah, great. Wow, it's great that you got that out of it. That's
absolutely
really cool. Because it really was about that, like the hi-hat stuff. In fact, that's the hi-hat stuff was really about, especially because we were playing it pretty live, and it was really about creating this wide groove. It was Tracy was here moving this Larry was kind of, I was kind of on the backside, kind of keeping it kind of so I can kind of slide around it a little bit, and Larry was kind of between us. Is kind of how it sits in there, and the hi-hat was about moving around the accents of around the melody, and also just feel wise, just to kind of and then the same thing with the kick drum. The kick drum didn't really have a pattern on those verses. I don't think it was really a lot of. There was a little bit of pattern, but the accents would be around a particular lyric. I really play to lyrics a lot. In fact, I mean, I usually ask, to see the lyrics. At least I have a copy of the lyrics when I'm going to play a song, just so I know what the vibe is, and what the saying, what if I'm able to play in that way of playing. I have that freedom. I want to be able to help accentuate what's being said, or if something's dark, to go to darker tones, and go to toms or be down here if it's brighter up here, unless sometimes you want to do the complete opposite and they want that contrast. But, it's really about the lyrics, especially this kind of music. I mean, her any kind of music, but her songs in particular, are just, it's about what she's saying and her delivery of what she's saying, so it's just really accentuating that and giving some movement.
And to your point, about like, whether it's a darker part of the song and maybe playing something, but that's what I get from that song, Denny, is you are supporting the mood of that song with what you're playing. You're just, it's so, it's almost like, I won't say it's invisible, but it's like you don't really even notice. And that, Andy Newmark said recently, like, which I think is a bit of an exaggeration, is the idea is to not even know the drummer's there or something funny like that. But that, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think what you played is so important because it supports what she's doing, but it's not in any way in the way of what her beautiful phrasing, as you say, and her lyrics and her great, and Larry's bass playing, by the way. I've been listening to this song a lot lately, and it sort of renewed I've heard it a gazillion times like the rest of the world, but when you really give it a critical listen, man, that must have been a joy to play with him, man.
So musical. Well, yeah, I mean, when I had thought about that, and I, and David, jumped on that, he may have thought of it too. Maybe we were just discussing it, but I was like, wow, I get to play with him. It's a, oh, ironic thing was he came in and he goes, hey, he goes, I've been talking about you recently. I go, what, me? And he said, yeah. He goes, I've been writing with Peter Kingsbury, and Peter Kingsbury was the main writer of Cock Robin.
Oh, wow.
And the record that it got out of the tour to do. And so it was like this synchronicity thing going. And no, I love playing with Larry. We had a lot of opportunities to I was fortunate. He brought me along on some of his productions, and we played together on some other things as well. And it's a joy. And then at the Grammys and got together again, it's just easy. We never say a word. We just play, and it
seems that way. Yeah,
it's really cool.
I'm going to play a song that's probably as opposite of that as you could ever be, and it's a great example of your versatility and why you're a top session guy, because this is what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to go from playing something like that to what I'm about to play. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to surprise you, but I think you'll recognize it. I know I recognize it because I hear it probably every day around dinner time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You ready?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke, your love life's the old way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour. I'll be there for you.
In our living room, pretty much every night we watch a Friends rerun one way or another. I don't know
Really? Wow.
if all those folks watching out there at home are aware of that. That's you on the. I know there's Pat Mustelato, our good friend, has
Mhm.
mentioned this to me once before that there's two versions. You're on the TV version, and
Mhm.
Pat's on there's a single version on the record or something that he's on or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
they did
yeah.
the record following this. They did the record, and actually, I think I gave him my drums to use on that track for the Rembrandts, and
Makes
because I
sense.
knew they're
Yeah.
doing because they want the kind of sound similar. I think I remember that. Pat's great. Yeah, Pat was actually in the Rembrandts. I had done uh, and then, well, that's another thing. No one knew that was going to be what it turned out to be,
Yeah.
success wise. It was basically, I had done a record, Danny Wild, part of half of the Rembrandts. Uh, I had done a solo record, and he was on Geffen, and we just got along great. Did this record, and he had these great demos. I remember saying, the producer, I remember saying, I may be really dumb by saying this, but these demos are great. What are we gonna do? And so I mean, they were really good. And so later, a couple years later, he called me up. He goes, "Remember, you really liked my demos?" Or like the next year, he goes, "I just did a song," and he goes, "with my writing partner, and it's now I did it the same way in my garage, and it's becoming a big hit." And it was their first single. And so then he called again and said, "Hey, I got to go do this TV thing. Are you available? It's a theme TV thing they're going to write a song for." Um, and they want it to be sort of it's kind of like the opening of the Monkees TV
Mm.
show, right? That
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
which you can see that, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and even tempo wise stuff like that. When I was a kid, I would I watched the Monkees. I was probably, I don't know, really young, but I watched the Monkees, and I'd go out, and right after it was over, I go out and I'd play some drums, right? And I got inspired by it, and it's like, yeah, I want to do that. So we went and we did. It was just a session, and we did the song. It was just the three of us, and we tracked it live, actually, and
Yeah.
and I remember it was fast. I was glad we got it quick because the tempo
It's
is pretty up there.
it's really up tempo. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really up there. And we did that. Then we did the claps, and I don't think I think I did maybe some percussion on it, but yeah, it was a one evening thing, and then the show came out,
Man.
man, and it keeps coming out. So
It keeps.
yeah,
I
pretty
know. I
cool.
know. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's a kind of show like Seinfeld, where for me, where if we don't might not watch it for a while, and then a couple will come on and be like, "Oh my God, this show is so funny!" Like, it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
gonna have
great.
it's got a shelf life forever, I think, because it was so well written, so well acted.
Yeah.
It's a fun. You don't have to think too much about it, and a great opening tune. So what else do you
Yeah.
need?
And
Yeah.
and again, back to casting. When you go to that show, I mean, that's just amazing casting. And that,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, it's so important. And yeah, they wrote the perfect song for it. They really did.
I
And
never knew
yeah,
about
I was really honored to be able to play on that. So
yeah.
actually, if
Well done, Denny.
if it wasn't for Pat probably living in Austin or something where he moved to, I may not have been on it. I don't know, because he was in that band at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But I was just going to say the monkeys thing. I never put that together, but that's spot on. That
yeah,
kind of same. The antics of all of them messing around, and
yeah,
I was a
yeah.
huge monkeys fan too. That was my
Mm,
first. Like I was born in 1960 when that show came on in '66. We'd watch it every I think Monday night, and it definitely
yeah,
sparked the beginning of music for me. Watching those
yeah,
guys. So
yeah.
yeah,
Funny. Yeah, I was born in '59, so the same. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was that. I was supposed to do the video, actually, the Friends video of that show, and then I was going to Japan for the summer to do a tour, and at the last minute they had to postpone the video another week, and I was gone, so I wasn't able to do that. That would have been fun, but
that would have been great.
but
Yeah.
those guys are great, and those, you know, they're just great songwriters. I mean, they write really great pop songs, you know, and so, in my opinion, great songs, and this may sound cliche, but it's really true. Which makes me want to go back to one other thing you said earlier, but you know, good songs really play themselves. It just, it's, you know, you really just don't get in the way, and help try to elevate it, you know. And then going back to what you and you said that Andy Newmark said, who was one of my, I mean, he was one of my huge inspirations, and
me too. Yeah.
this guy, and just amazing. And I remember I got a chance to meet him when I was on tour with Belinda. We were in Japan, and he was playing. Who was he playing with?
Maybe with Roxy. Was it Roxy Music? Brian Ferry?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
That was it. And I went to see it, and it was so great. And then we went to the after party, and he was there, and I got to meet him, and for a minute, and he was great. And that was
sweetheart.
I was a huge fan. And but anyway, but I agree with what he said a lot. And it's like, in fact, when people, it's like, you don't get in the way. It's not really about drums. Hopefully you're doing what you got to do to propel it. If it's loud or if it's soft, you're doing your thing. And, you know, and that, go back to that deceptively simple thing. It's not simple to do that, and to you know, to have that space, or to not stand out too much, you know, and make it work. And that's what I love doing. And people have said before, oh, I didn't know there was drums on something, a fast car or something. And that's actually a compliment. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad, you know, because, you know, and there's other songs where it's obvious, and, you know, that's different. And that's a compliment too. But, you know, I agree with him. You know, it's like, you're part of we start off as bass players, drummers, singers, whatever, harmonica players, but the goal is to become a musician, and the music just happens to come out of that instrument that you love and you've spent that time with. But you're a musician, you're a group of people, you know, it's all inclusive. You're not by yourself. You're not doing yourself. It's not about the drums. It's I don't even know if somebody said, "Hey, what's that thing you're playing?" I thought, I don't know. Let me hear it. You know, and because you're just reacting to everybody else. You're not making them play to you necessarily, unless there's a part that you have to play or that you come up with, and that's different. But still, even that part has to be woven into everything else. You know, and you're, you know, it's the ultimate listening, and that, you know, and especially back then, making records, it wasn't about, okay, that everyone played the right stuff, right? That was good, it was well played. A lot of times that wasn't the take. It was like, yeah, that was perfect. Okay, that's not the record take. That doesn't do anything to us, you know, when we're listening. The goal is to people be listening in their car, and it's low, and they're talking to somebody, and they want to turn this thing up, you know, they hear it, you know, and you want to grab them, and that's really about feel and emotion, and of course the melody, and you know, at first, and so all of that has to be worked together and meshed together. You know, one thing can't stand up above the other, except for the melody. You know, that you know, again, that's why I have the singer as loud as possible. I you know, I want to be right there for whoever that is, you know, and help guide everything else. You know, we're in modern day music, we're basically the conductors, you know. It's really our job to kind of make sure, you know, things are in the right place and moving in the right place, and help kind of guide where that's going to go dynamically. And but it comes from that singer, so that you're the partner. Like if everyone else is listening to either you or the singer, then it should be okay, and you should all be able to stick together. If not, then you're not, as a drummer, you're not doing your job,
Mm-hmm.
and but again, it's all, that working together and that magic. There's this intangible thing that happens in certain takes that's just magical. It can't be repeated. It just happens, and you don't know why it happens. But back then, that was more of a thing. That was like, okay, we got our take, when it was magical. It could be the first time you played it, or it could be the 20th time you played it, but it had to be that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually it's one of the first couple takes, because that's when people aren't thinking about it yet.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why, it fascinates me that guys like, Jim Gordon, rest in peace, rest his soul. And I'm sure yourself too, and Jeff and Keltner and, Rick Marotta, you guys can do 20 takes of a tune and still bring some emotions. It's not your preference,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of producers will do that. A lot of artists.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard, somebody like Jackson Browne, for example, who our friend Mike Jokum worked for, will want,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get it on the second take, but he wants 10 more, just
Mm-hmm.
to have. And that's got to be the hardest thing, is to
Mm-hmm.
just keep going and trying to bring that spontaneity and that kind of magic each time,
Yeah, and the key is you're just resetting. Forget what you did last time, or even if
That's
you
great.
have a thing that you're doing
Yeah.
each time, you just reset. It's like it's the first time, and you take a deep breath, and you let yourself be different, because there's a reason why they're not saying, okay, we're done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, do something different. There's something has to, and it's usually some kind of a feeling, and it's more about connecting. Some there's been takes on records where it was us learning the song, hearing it for the first time and playing, and that was the record
Wow.
take.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, I'm not saying that was on Tracy's record. I don't know if that was that in particular, but there has been records I've done that had done that, and we'd go in, and producer would go. I remember one with David Kirschenbaum, actually went in, and he goes, "This is great." And like a bridge happened that wasn't even in the song, that just stuff, right? And but it worked. Everything just worked, and we're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Now we know what it is. We can play it better." Well,
Yeah.
and he goes, and luckily he pressed record. He always pressed record, and so we go out and we try to do it, and it technically got better, but it didn't have the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The flow and
Man.
the connection. And my theory to that is because we were all focused. We weren't focused on our instrument. We were focused on the song. We were focused on who was singing the song and the chords, and the mood of the song. And so we were all connected in that one area. As soon as you start thinking about what you're doing, then you're separated.
Yeah.
Like do
cool.
that practicing, do that in your practice, but when you're there, it's all about the music. It just happens to come out of this instrument that you hopefully have practiced enough to be able to proficiently deliver.
Yeah. Denny, I got a question. I'm going to run this by you. It's someone is asking if the Friends theme song was a buyout, or if it was, they're asking, does Denny get $sign every time, if there's a residual type situation? I'm guessing because it was TV, it was residual.
Yeah, you get residuals. How it works in the music, it's not like publishing, getting publishing, after and Musicians Union have two different contracts for residuals. And with the Musicians Union, what it is the FM, it's based on how many people played on it. So like if there's a certain amount of however they calculate it, And so on that one to be honest with you, was a good one because there's only three of us.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we go The Lion King, which was huge, right? But you know, there's a couple hundred people orchestra on that, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's not going to be the same residual as something like Prince would be. So yeah, you get residuals. It's not, again, it's not like publishing, you know, residuals, but
Right.
you get residuals. It's a beautiful thing. You know, sometimes, you know, there was a time period in the record business where it was kind of separated. Like if you did TV and film, you didn't really talk about it to the record producers and it was like things were, it was a little snobbier thing going on in the business. Now everybody does everything, right? And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's a thing. And sometimes we go, God, we should have done some more of those TV shows because they, you know, they do those residuals. But records have the same residuals in a different way. That's done. It's all done. It all goes into one fund. All the labels and, you know, different entities contribute to this fund, and then depending on how many sessions you did that year, and compared to everybody else, you get that percentage of that fund. And so that's, you know, you get it. You know, those have shrunk a lot because those are really based on record sales.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 80s and 90s, those were really, really, you know, a good thing for us that is extra income.
That's great.
And then,
Yeah.
but now there's no real record sales, so that part's diminished. The TV film thing is still viable, the after thing.
That's great. I have to share a photo before I forget. This is just a sorry, I'm jumping around here, but I know we're getting a little on in the show. But where is? Yes. I just want to know what it must have felt like to be in this group. I mean, this was 1990, so you'd been in LA about 10 years, but you said you'd started to really sort of things started to happen around 88, 87, 88. So here you are in 1990 with Mike Beard, Vinnie Colaiuta, Harvey Mason, Jim Keltner, Steve Schaefer, and the man, Jeff Porcaro. And you're in that circle, man. I mean, what about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, even looking at today, I still feel like I pasted my picture on it. You know, it's like, yeah, it was surreal. I mean, thanks to Robin Flans, you know, for inviting me to that. It was very surreal, and it was a wild day. I have to say, I was nervous as hell going there, and I mean, literally, I chose the part of the career that I do because of Harvey and Jeff. I mean, you know, they were the two main parts of that, and then everyone else there, and Jim and you know, and Mike and Vinny and Steve and all of them. It was amazing. A few years prior, I had I was doing a record, and the producer said, "Hey," I was it was a, you know, it wasn't a big record, but producer said, "Hey, you know, I think you're gonna." He was very nice. I think you're gonna do really well. He goes, "But I want you to." He goes. You gotta think about some different cymbal sound. And he goes, "I'm doing a session with Mike Baird. He's overdubbing drums, and at A&M, and he'd be fine if you want to come by and like just check out, you know." And so I went by there and hung out the day and listened to how he was doing his sounds. I think he had the Simmons toms at that moment, but so I kind of knew him. I had met Jeff a couple times. Jeff, I've heard stories, and I don't know for sure, but I do know. I'm pretty sure he was contacted to even come down to the Tracy thing, and you know, and of course he probably wasn't going to do an audition, but he, you know, for whatever reason he wasn't there, and so if he was the one down there, I definitely would have never had that opportunity. So I thank him forever for that. And but he was so kind, and I think he was somebody who supposedly had mentioned me as part of to go, and he was always so kind and generous with his time and his energy, and he made everybody, just feel really good and comfortable,
Yeah.
and uh, he was really good to me that day. There's another picture. I think I'm sitting on a couch next to him, kind of. I'm just kind of cuddled up, and I mean, I felt like that day I was just like going, yeah, what he said, yeah, what he said, yeah, and yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then we're telling stories, and I was like thinking, oh, my stories must sound so stupid to these guys, and and like, yeah, cute kid, cute. But they were all so generous and wonderful and nice, and really grateful for that.
They're all such great guys, I mean,
Yeah,
and Jeff, rest his soul, man. He was, I didn't know him well, but
yeah,
he was such a hero. And I remember meeting him for the first time, and then getting to know him a little bit. And he was, like you said, he was, he treated everybody so specially. Like he just,
yeah.
like you were his best friend. And it wasn't phony. I mean, he was a very sincere, like he'd put his arm around you and go, yeah, man, come on, and like you could feel his soul. I mean, Keltner's like that, and you're like that. And,
Yeah, he is.
and
Jeff, I went to the Baked Potato to see him, and I went up to him, and I didn't really know him that well yet, and and I said something to him, and he turns around and compliments you. I think he heard the Tracy Chapman record. And he said something really nice, but he was that kind of guy. He's going to turn it around, like, oh my God, don't talk
yeah,
about me. I'm
yeah.
here to talk about you, yeah, for myself. And but he, he was that way. Even as far as what he did, I remember hearing, and I always loved this, that if there was somebody, that a good songwriter or a band, and they were going to record something, and they were recording a demo and hoping to get something, or and they didn't have a lot of backing, or he would volunteer just to show up and help and play
Hmm.
and do his thing, and whatever he could to help. And I always thought that was so great,
Yeah.
and no, they were so nice to me, and because I was this kid, coming in, and when I look at this picture too, and all those guys are so great, and all so different, they
Right.
all,
Exactly.
I hear each one of them when I look at them. You can just spot exactly, their personalities and their playing.
Yeah.
You
I'm going to
know,
go around the horn for people watching at home that might not recognize
yeah.
all these faces. Of course, there's that young, handsome Denny Fongheiser.
Mhm.
We'll go clockwise, left to right here. So there's Denny, Mike Beard, just off the Journey tour. That would have been a couple of years before that. Vinnie Colaiuta, Harvey Mason,
Mhm.
Jim Keltner,
Mhm.
Steve Schaefer, Jeff Porcaro, and
Yeah.
as you say, all of you guys, not all of those guys, but all of you guys are like masters in your own right, and unique, but like the mark that all of you guys have made on records and movies and TV shows. I was just in touch with Steve Schaefer last week, and he's going to be coming on soon. And
Oh,
um,
cool.
yeah, and Steve is like he shared with me, which I'm going to save for when he's on the show, but a list of all the TV shows he did going back to like 1972, and it'll blow your mind how much. Well,
Wow.
because you work in the business, how busy
Yeah.
Steve Schaefer, um,
Yeah.
what his resume is like. But
I want to
he
know.
was
I want to know that list, because I used to love. I used to listen to music in all the TV shows, and even the source music and all of that, or movies. And I had like favorite composers and stuff. Back then, Lalo Schifrin was one of them, and
yeah.
but I would love to. Yeah, I want to hear that list too, because I've probably
Okay.
watched most of those. I can't
You
wait till
abs-
he's on. I'll watch it.
All right, absolutely. You absolutely will know those songs. But and we're gonna do another one of these because we're coming up to 2 hours, and we didn't even talk about Heart
Oh well.
or what you've been doing as a producer, and so if you're okay, let's conclude today and come back another time and kind of really
Okay.
dig into some of these other things. I would love
Sounds
that.
good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
This has been
Yeah.
so
I'll try not to
amazing.
talk so much next time.
No, come on, no. I'm
Okay.
that's your job. When you come on here, you need to talk, not me. So they're not watching to hear me talk. Believe me. Man, what a pleasure! What an honor! What a great friend you are. To all these years later, it's just so great to still be in touch and see you.
Yeah, the honor's mine. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's nice.
Denny,
It's
you're
really
so
wonderful.
humble, man. Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah,
but
You
and
des-
you're one of my favorite people. I mean, you can ask Kimberly. I've talked about you before she met you. So
thank you,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
I'm honored. I'm honored, and
Yeah.
likewise for you too. And
It's great you're doing this, and you're bringing a lot of different people, and you're really, getting a lot of cool insights,
thank you.
and
Yeah,
I love that.
thank you. I'm having a great time, and I feel like this is my encore career is to like all these great drummers that I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing, like now just helping educate the rest of the world and how great you guys are if they don't already know, or just shining a spotlight on you. So it's a badge of honor for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Denny.
you. Greatly appreciated.
All right. Well, hang with me for 1 second. Thanks for watching, everybody. Big hand for Denny Fongheiser. All right. Well, that's my show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And the podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, so download it. And remember, no drummers are ever harmed on Live from My Drum Room or Track Talk. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.